What the fuck? Sorry. Hmm. Yikes. No, has he been? I wonder if he sued him. I wish we had the transcript of those depositions. Now, keep in mind, motive is not an element that you can prove for murder period, but for murder one. Sorry. This is awkward. I don't even know if you can hear me. It's so weird. If anybody's out there, can you let me know if you can hear me? Let me know if you hear. Oh wait, I haven't even had it up. Sorry.
I didn't research. I relied on what Todd told me about it.
If we can show the witness 306, but not publish.
Should be.
Mr. Firehelm, can you identify the document? Tell me what the name of it is.
It's titled Today's Hunter, Hunter, and down below it says a guide to hunting responsibly and safely.
Do you know what topics a person needs to learn about to get a hunter safety certificate?
This is so
No,
awkward.
I don't. I grew up hunting, but I never took a course.
I kind of feel bad for him.
If you had reviewed this guide before trial and it included information about hypothermia and organs of the body or things like that, could you have used that to explain the Google searches the state presented as motive for Todd to kill Amy?
I think that's reasonable, yeah.
Oh gosh. This is so hard. Like, okay, so he just
did you
said
understand that
fact for
Todd was charged with first-degree murder, which included premeditation or planning, right?
Sure.
If I could show you 223. Do you remember discussing with Mr. Sabers about whether you should hire a computer expert? Do you remember discussing with Mr. Sabers? And I'm showing you an email from May of 2019. If you could tell us when you've reviewed it and identify it for me.
It's going kind of fast, but yeah, it looks like an exchange between myself and Bob and Lynn White.
his sister.
And did you ever consult with a computer expert or digital forensic expert?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. We can take that one down. Do you remember evidence being tendered to you that included text messages between Ms. Mullis and friends of hers?
Yeah, I think so.
Did you interview any of those friends about those messages?
No interviews, no.
Why?
Do you recall
I've been doing
deposing
this
some
for
of
so
them?
long.
I think we did, yeah.
Did you seek to issue any subpoenas for cell phone records as part of your defense investigation or preparation?
I don't recall doing that, no.
But why? What was going on with you? Like, if
Do
you've
you
done crimes
recall
against your
filing a
boy,
motion in limine before trial, asking to prohibit witnesses from testifying to hearsay, especially relevant to the friends of Amy and what Amy had told them about Todd?
I think there was a motion, yes.
Do you recall getting a ruling on that before trial?
Yes.
What was that ruling, if you remember?
Not favorable to our request to limit the evidence.
well, that's not his fault.
Do you recall discussing this
If he
with
raised the issue, help him
Bob
fix it.
Sabers?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, can we show the witness exhibit 219, an email with Mr. Sabers?
Oh, God. This is why you don't put stuff in email. It's always discoverable. Unless it's like attorney-client privilege.
Do you recall this email exchange?
Like, I kind of feel bad for this guy, but I also don't, because if you don't have the bandwidth or the experience with,
Not specifically, but I'm not saying I didn't get it.
then you don't take the case.
If the docket reflects that the judge did not issue a ruling on your motion in limine and reserved it for trial, would you disagree?
Oh God, did he have like mental health problems at the time, or like mental health? Oh God. Also, he's testifying to this. So, what is going to happen if Todd
Without certainty, no, I wouldn't disagree.
Are you familiar with making hearsay objections during a criminal trial?
Yes,
If you made objections, would those be reflected in the trial transcripts?
sure.
Do you remember a statement by a friend of Ms. Melissa's, Terry Stainer, to the effect of, "Look for me in the timber if I go missing"?
I remember that specifically.
Was that one of the statements that you intended to address with your motion in limine?
Wait, did it get offered?
That,
Oh,
others like it.
Why that statement and others like it?
Well, it indicated Amy's state of mind and her fear that Todd would harm her.
Did you consider those types of hearsay statements to
be pregnant.
connote a guilty inference that
You would
you would have wanted to keep out of the trial?
Yes,
This is probably when he's regretting.
Do you recall if you and Mr. Sabers discussed what your roles were going to be at the trial?
I don't recall a specific discussion, but I think throughout I was the lead counsel and he was taking notes and making suggestions and talking to Todd, that kind of thing.
Do you recall if he passed you notes during the trial?
He did.
I apologize. Excuse me. Do you recall if you read them?
That's difficult to do during a trial. Glance at them, talk about them during a break, that kind of thing.
Did
What
Mr.
was it
Sabers
for,
handle any
like,
witnesses at this
improving
trial?
I don't think he did, no.
Do you recall any discussions about who was going to do the opening statement?
I don't think we ever discussed it.
What the? Sorry.
Did you draft an opening statement to review with your client before trial began?
I normally have, I don't know if you call it an outline or notes, but not really a draft, word for word. And I don't recall sharing with Todd about the content of the opening statement before we went to trial.
Holy sh!
Do you remember what the premise of your opening statement was?
This wasn't an accident. Oh, did he?
That Amy was murdered, but not by Todd.
Yeah. Why the?
What evidence did you plan to present to show that?
The focus was on Tristan and his testimony about the events of that morning, of who was where.
Did you have any other witnesses or evidence that you planned
Oh my God, this is
to
so
present?
awkward.
I think we called a couple witnesses that had contact with Tristan after, that took him home from the hospital after this had occurred.
Did you have an alternate suspect or another person in mind that you were going to suggest was responsible for Amy's death?
No, I think I talked about that with Todd and Bob, that wasn't our job to find out who did it. It just cast doubt about Todd being responsible.
Yeah, but you know that people need a narrative. You know that jurors need somebody.
Did your client, Mr. Mullis, ever agree to your decision to make that statement in your opening statement?
I never asked him if I could, and he never told me I couldn't. I think going clear back to early on in the case,
Oh, man.
I made it clear that I did not believe this was an accident and that she was murdered.
And that was based on your own
This is good for
personal
audio.
opinion or
Really good.
evaluation of the autopsy report?
Autopsy report, police reports, life experiences.
What the? Dude, you're an attorney. You're not an ME. You're not a doctor.
And you don't recall writing any letters to Todd explaining that or asking him
Why did
if
he take this
was in
case?
agreement?
I'm sure there weren't any letters. Again, we just generally talked about our theme of the trial.
Do you recall that Tristan testified via closed circuit
This is like
television at this criminal trial?
He did.
Do you recall how old he would have been?
14, I think.
13.
And I think you testified a little bit earlier that part of your plan was to focus on Tristan, right?
Yes, significantly.
But yeah, you didn't have him be that person so that Todd could quote.
Did you consider Tristan to be Todd's alibi?
Sixth Amendment confrontation, right?
Yes.
Oh, come on, man.
Do you recall there being an issue between Tristan's pretrial deposition and his trial testimony?
This is all good for Todd.
Yes.
Did you do any investigation or take any steps to learn more about the slight change in Tristan's testimony?
If I'm recalling the events accurately, Tristan testified in a deposition, and he gave testimony about the amount of time he would have been absent from a location in the hog barn where he could see Todd. And he gave a time frame that was relatively short.
You need more than that.
And then afterwards, he met with his attorney, and that attorney came back and said that Tristan said he had made a mistake.
And I guess my question is, did you take any action to
Right.
look into that?
The action I took, and I believe it's indicated in an email, is that I contacted Todd about this development with Tristan and suggested that we needed more time to do that. But Todd was adamant that he did not want to continue the trial. So other than that, Lynn had provided me with some drone photographs of the hog barn and the shed where Amy was found and that kind of thing. So we used those to show the significant distance between the barns. And if Todd did leave Tristan's eye shot,
This guy gets subpoenaed too.
even for the longer time that Tristan said, I think it was 30 seconds. I don't know what.
This is like,
It would have been impossible to leave the far end of the hog barn, go to the shed, do whatever happened there, and then get back before Tristan missed him.
that's not enough for reasonable doubt, buddy.
So that covers everything that you did do
Oh, shit.
Yes.
to corroborate or to investigate Tristan's testimony.
Yes.
Does anybody know if he's been sued by God for malpractice? I couldn't find a
Do you recall why you called Mr. Mullis to testify at his trial?
Oh,
One reason is that so many times when I've talked to jurors after trials, my conclusion was they expect to and want the defendant to testify that they didn't do it.
maybe, but that doesn't mean that you put him up there.
Even though you tell them that in voir dire and so forth, that they don't have to.
And it can't be held against them if they don't.
And as
The judge instructs them of that.
late as the night before the beginning of the trial, when we met in the Dubuque County Jail, I'm not sure we had decided for sure if Todd was going to testify. But I left that meeting that night with the understanding that we both agreed that he would.
How did you prepare Mr. Mullis to testify?
In those meetings,
Did you ask him questions so he could practice his response?
I don't know if it was questions or answers. We just talked about topics that he would expect to be asked about.
Oh my God.
Did you
Roll
practice any potential cross questions that the prosecutor might ask him?
I don't think so.
This is all very good for Todd. It sucks that it didn't happen at his actual trial when it should have. But she's
Do you
making
remember
finding after
discussing
finding right
Todd
now. I know she did.
that he needed to testify to rebut the Google searches?
I think that is one of the things we talked about, yes.
And Was that in part because you didn't have an expert or anybody else to testify about whether Todd made those Google searches?
And why didn't you have an expert? Because you don't understand Google or Google searches. Basically admitted that.
I don't think that was the reason, no.
Yeah, but lack of understanding is
Did you cross any other
justification.
state witnesses about whether Todd Mullis could have done those searches?
There was cross-examination about some of the searches that seemed obvious that Todd would not have done. I can't remember what state
No.
witness that would have been.
No, there's no seeming.
Did you consider Todd's credibility to the jury after your opening statement?
I take that into account throughout.
Were you concerned that you had told the jury that Todd was wrong when he told investigators Amy died in an accident?
He was mistaken. What were you thinking? He said he tried 8 to 9
Would you repeat that, please?
murder one cases.
Were you concerned about Todd's credibility in front of the jury when you had told the jury in opening that Todd was wrong when he told investigators Amy fell on the corn rake and it was an accident?
I don't think that comment was undermined his credibility. I think Todd honestly thought that when he said that thing.
You thought that.
I just said,
the jurors aren't going to think that.
as
What's the
we
dude's name?
researched or prepared for trial, that was wrong.
Upper
Do you remember the 911 call in this case?
Yes.
Harold.
Do you remember it stipulating to the foundation or the admission of it at trial?
I think so, yes.
He stipulated to the admission of it.
Did you ever take the 911 call to the jail so Todd could listen to it before trial?
I think we had a transcript of it, but I don't ever recall playing the audio for
And
him in jail.
what's his name? The head deputy. What is his last name? Everybody.
If you had been tendered a transcript, would that have been in the discovery?
Yeah, I think so.
Todd didn't hear.
I'm just clarifying, you didn't have a transcript made.
No, I don't think so.
Do
Okay,
you
but
remember
that's
the prosecutor playing the 911 call during her cross-examination of Todd Mullis?
Yes.
Do you remember 2 comments towards the end of the call that the prosecutor emphasized?
I do.
Had you ever heard those before?
No.
Were those undisclosed statements made by a criminal defendant?
Objection calls for speculation and a conclusion that's well beyond the actual terms of what he can testify to.
Shut up,
The evidence speaks
Tom.
for itself.
Or rule, the witness can answer
See,
if
that's
he's
when-
able.
She's annoyed. I swear to God.
Could you repeat?
Yeah, I'll rephrase. Are you familiar with, rules of evidence that require the disclosure of statements made by a defendant?
Statement against
Yes.
interest.
Before
I don't
the
know, Bobby, are you?
cross-examination where the prosecutor played that call, had those statements ever been disclosed to you before? A purported statement. So sorry.
So discovery violation.
Well, the whole 911 call was, we always had that, the whole
You
thing.
have it transcribed.
But the contention that he said certain words, no.
And weren't those phrases highly inflammatory?
And prejudicial.
Yes,
Did you think Todd made those statements on that call?
I did not.
And you don't recall seeing them in any discovery or anybody telling you about them in a deposition?
No,
Have you made a motion for a mistrial before in a trial?
yes,
Did you do so in this case?
no.
You should have at least moved for it. Poor
You
Todd.
can have just one moment.
I wonder if he feels like that. I wonder if he blames whatever homeboy's name is, Jake, for Google.
Do you recall the prosecutor telling you off the record that she was going to ask him about these specific statements?
I'm certain that she did not.
Do you recall taking any investigative steps to determine who would have been present at the time of those alleged or purported statements by Todd?
If I'm remembering correctly, the 911 call ended there on the gravel road when law enforcement well, first it was law enforcement people showed up. And that's about when supposedly he made these statements that the prosecutor brought up.
If you had had notice of these purported statements, could you have investigated or attempted to discredit that cross-examination question?
Yes, I actually took the 911 call after the trial was over and had it enhanced to try to see if I heard what supposedly was said.
Did you ever learn how the state came to
After the trial,
make
doesn't
that argument?
anybody.
I was told by the prosecutor.
Did you get your own transcript of the call for post-trial motions or anything?
Hey, whoever's on
I-
here, I gotta run. I'm sorry.
Because of the
For
change in
jumping on.
representation, I
Next
was
time, I'll do
involved in
another one and
post-trial
we can
motions.
chat in the.
When did your representation
Common thing.
end? That I should have asked you that first.
Between verdict and
Or-
sentencing.
I'll be right back. I don't even know if anybody's on here. Or if you can hear me. I don't know.
So
Gotta
you
get
did
through
not
all
get a
this.
transcript of the call before your representation ended, am I right?
I think you're right. I'm not sure we ever had a transcript of it.
God, man. You're killing me.
Your Honor, can I have just a moment to confirm? Nicole, can you find 294 to show Mr. Firehome? And I'll move on for a moment and come back while you're doing that. I don't think I warned her I was going to do that. Mr. Firehelm, during your 2023 deposition, do you remember being asked about a Greeley EMT who had filed a report about her response to the 911 call for Amy's injuries?
Yeah, I kind of recall something about that, yes.
Did you do any investigation or take any steps to determine whether the first responders' actions and or CPR could have caused some of Amy Mullis's injuries?
I vaguely recall whether it was the ER doctor at the hospital or possibly during the medical examiners. But I'm not sure of that. I'm sorry.
Did you talk to any of the Greeley EMS first responders before trial?
No.
Do you recall the Mullis family telling you that Greeley EMS was there and that you could contact them?
I don't recall them telling us that. It was pretty obvious from the reports. They
Okay.
might have.
But did you ever do any follow-up to get the Greeley EMS reports before trial?
Not unless they were in the general discovery.
Did you ever learn that law enforcement was suspicious about how Amy sustained her injuries at the hospital on November 10th?
I honestly can't say when the suspicion began.
Do you recall doing any investigation or interviews with people about that?
Again, and I might be wrong about this, about whether or not that hospital doctor talking to the law enforcement, that it may have started then.
Sorry, y'all.
The actual
But
day.
did you take any steps to learn about potential conflicts of interest or bias in the investigation?
Yeah.
No.
And were you aware that Amy Mullis had worked at the same hospital where she was taken when she was injured?
Yes, I think we
It's
did
like
know that.
he didn't.
And were you aware that some of the witnesses the state called to elicit those hearsay statements worked at that hospital as well?
I think we were aware of that, yes.
This is like you should have retired a while ago. That sounds so mean, but really, I've just seen it happen so many times.
Okay.
Why are you still working? You're like 70 something. You got
294.
No,
It's the record to reflect that we're showing the witness exhibit 294. And if you could take a look at the first page and tell me what it is, and then we are happy to scroll through it for you.
It's still dark.
Still loading. It knows that it's 4 o'clock, I think.
Yeah, not showing that it's connected. I'm not sure if you need to try again.
somebody named Trace in the chat, in the Facebook chat, said it would take a lot less time if they would just ask this worthless attorney what he actually did, because I think the reply would be
Can
nothing.
you identify the document for me, Mr. Farrell?
And he still doesn't have it yet.
Oh, no. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, this is bad, like, that this happened, but, like, good that he's admitting to all of this.
And Mr. Baki's computer.
Yes.
All right, let's try that one.
Baki, that's the, one of the Tweedledum and Tweedledummers
Do you see a
Tweedledee and
transcript of
Tweedledum.
911 call?
for the state.
Yes.
What date?
The date of the call,
Yes.
November 10th, 2018.
And does it identify who made the call?
Oh, this is painful. I don't know.
911 call by Todd Mullis.
gave Jake
And if we can start
all
scrolling.
F up. Yes. Okay. So, no further questions. Did you royally F up? Yes. Okay, we're done. Any cross? No, we're good, Your Honor.
Page 15 of the PDF.
Jennifer said, I'm not a lawyer and I could have defended
Could
Todd
you
better at
review
his
that
first
for me,
trial.
Mr. Firehelm?
I don't get it. This guy said he did criminal defense like his whole life. But he did say he'd only tried like 8 or 9
Yes.
Class A felony.
I want to direct you to line 5. Can you read that for me?
Please.
Deputy Luke, here, comma, Todd, let me.
Do you know who Deputy Luke is?
Painful.
No, not specifically.
If I told you that was Delaware County Sheriff Deputy Luke Thompson, who testified at trial, would you disagree?
No.
Objection, we're reading from evidence. We're reading from a transcript, not an evidence that the state would object to its admission and consideration of in the first place.
Wait. It's in evidence as
If I could
part of
ask
the
two
underlying.
more questions and then I'll move to admit it, Your Honor.
Well,
It's not in
again,
evidence.
If there's an objection to it, we should probably admit it before we get too far in the weeds. I mean, do you think you can get it in through this witness?
No, he didn't even have one made. He didn't have a transcript made. Why are you doing this actually? Why are you doing it through him? This is becoming annoying. You guys need to have the right witness authenticate your evidence and offer it in.
Your Honor, it's a certified transcript by a court reporter.
You could take judicial
I'm not
notice
sure
of
what
it.
other foundation the state would like to have. Page 17, I think, is where Kimberly Blink does her certificate.
Come on, y'all.
I mean, counsel, any response in that respect?
While we agree that this is a certified transcript of a 911 call that, according to that same certification, is done merely to the best of the court reporter's ability,
Well,
based upon heavy breathing and inaudibility, this is not a transcript from a court proceeding. It constitutes hearsay. This witness hasn't seen it before. And while it's certified, that may go to its authenticity and to its identification, but it certainly doesn't go to its admissibility outright. So the state objects on lack of foundation, objects also on hearsay as it falls under the rule and doesn't meet any criteria or exceptions.
She's already got what she needs out of
And 403(2)B as prejudicial more than probative, given that the Court of Appeals have already addressed this in a footnote finding that the jury could listen for themselves and believe or disbelieve the arguments of the prosecutor as presented at
Shut
trial.
up, Tom over.
Well,
Did they say
I
that?
think that certainly Ms. Nichols-Cook, you can ask your questions about the timing and the presence of the deputy in relation to when these statements were made or not made without the use of the transcript. We can
Yes, you don't
address
need the transcript right now.
possibility of this coming in maybe at a later time. I
Yes,
don't
have
think
another
this is the right
witness offer it.
witness necessarily to do it if it is going to come in, but why
Right.
don't you proceed?
have one
We
made.
do need to end at 4:30 today, and I suspect
Okay.
we're not in a position to do that, so.
I
go
want
ahead.
hour
Thank you, Your Honor.
central time, right?
Mr. Firehelm, if you could just read through page 15 and 16 for me.
If you could just tell me when to scroll.
Page or line?
Page 15 and page 16.
Okay. It's kind of covered up, but I think this is 15.
I bet Jake had a flip phone.
Line
Or like a
2.
back building bag phone.
Oh, excuse me.
But come on, dude.
Just scrolling slowly on page
Sorry, just tell me when you want me to scroll since I'm helping with the technological issues.
Could you, let me see the top?
Sure.
Okay, that's good. Line 2 starts out, she's cold.
And right now, you're just reading to yourself, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you know you can't read into the record. How is this going to refresh his recollection? What are you doing with this? He didn't even know there was
Scroll,
a transcript. He thought he had one made and he didn't.
Have you been able to review page 15 and 16?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
In your review of this transcript of the 911 call, do you see the two statements the prosecutor asked Mr. Mullis about on his cross-examination?
What are you trying to do?
I do not see those words.
Thank you. We can take it down.
Yeah, like, come on, dude. I'm getting frustrated with God's counsel. Like, I don't like to disparage counsel, but this woman in
Mr.
particular has
Firehelm,
been doing this for a long time. Like, as long as I have. Like, she should know how to authenticate this stuff. Call
Are
the right
you aware
witness
that the
and get it
state
in.
misrepresented the source of the Google searches at the criminal trial?
Objection to the categorization of the state's statement and also under Rule 5403B. Also vague.
Calm over needs to get
Sustained.
laid and calm down.
Mr. Firehelm, I'll ask a different question. Are you aware that evidence exists that would have rebutted the evidence presented at trial that Todd Mullis alone made the Google searches that the state presented?
Haven't you already asked him that?
I'm not aware of any technical research or document.
Are you aware of digital forensic experts that could examine the iPad and determine
No, because he doesn't like know what
information that could
or
potentially
how to use it.
contradict the evidence
No.
presented at trial?
That's pretty broad. Yeah, I assume an expert could examine it and give an opinion to that. Whether or not it would confirm it or not, I don't know.
How do you not know this? All right, so this is a sign that you
If there
need to
was evidence that contradicted
or
the
not take
state's
cases like this.
presentation about the electronic evidence,
I mean, it was
would you have
years
used
ago.
that at trial?
Not that long ago.
If there was evidence,
Yes.
yes.
If you were aware of evidence that contradicted the state medical examiner's determination that the manner of death was homicide, would you have presented that at trial?
Yes.
Okay, I think I have one last exhibit to show you, which will be 245.
I'm trying to pull up his affidavit.
Oh, yeah, sorry, no. 245.
This is baffling to me. Like, I don't understand why he took this case. He explained how he learned of it. He clearly, the guy doesn't even have a website. Like, he wasn't in it for like notoriety or fame or reputation that I can tell. It doesn't seem like he cares about any of it. Why did he take this case?
Mr. Firehelm, do you recognize the document on your screen?
No.
If we can scroll a little bit, and let me know if you do recognize the handwriting or content.
I don't know.
Okay. We can take that one down. Do you recall taking any steps to investigate Amy Mullis's medical condition at the time that she was injured on November 10th?
You know, like maybe she had anemia and
We were aware that she had had a medical procedure a few days prior.
Did you obtain medical records about Ms. Mullis's procedure or medications that she was on?
If it was in the discovery, yes, I don't recall specifically.
oh my God, even his affidavit isn't right.
Did you do any investigation into
In
whether
this
Ms.
case.
Mullis would have been dizzy on November 10th due to her medications?
No research, no, other than what Todd and Tristan said.
And did you issue any subpoenas to get medical records?
I don't believe so.
Come on,
Did
dude.
you have any medical records that you did receive in discovery reviewed by an expert?
No.
I don't even know that they needed to have him. I mean, I'm glad he's testifying, but like his affidavit says, I did not personally.
Do you
consult with
recall a
any
letter
experts
from
in this
Mr.
matter. Are you
Mullis asking
effing
you
kidding me?
to, or stating that he wanted to get a 3D demonstration of the injury to show that it was a fall?
No, I don't recall that specifically, no.
If we can pull up 233.
Oh. I did not personally review or examine the physical evidence in this case, including the clothing Amy Mullis wore on the day of her injuries.
And we're going to go to page 11. 233. 233.
At the time of this trial,
Is it in front of you, Mr. Fairholm?
Yes.
approximately 7 first degree, and then it doesn't even finish the sentence on his affidavit.
Can you read page 11 and 12?
I did not consider the accident theory to be a realistic possibility because I grew up on a farm with personal experience using a corn rake. I did not think this was a likely scenario taking into account clothes that Amy was wearing and the nature and extent of her wounds.
Do you see any drawings or diagrams in this letter?
It's not very clear, but I can tell that there's something there.
I'm gonna look at page,
That one, yes.
we can scroll to page 13.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to this exhibit isn't in evidence. It's hearsay. It hasn't been adequately authenticated. I do believe 213 was admitted into evidence and, oh, I'm sorry, 233 was admitted in full at this time. I apologize. I withdraw my objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I will say they have to make a record to say though, because they can
Mr.
actually
Fairholm,
build
have you had a
it too.
chance to look at page 13?
Yes. Excuse me.
And we can scroll to 14 as well. Do you see additional drawings regarding Amy's injuries in this letter from Mr. Mullis?
I do.
Did you take any steps to investigate the information that Mr. Mullis provided to you?
I don't know what the date of this is.
Do you recall taking any steps at any time to investigate the
No,
information in this letter?
no forensic experts or witnesses or anything, no.
Okay. Your Honor, I think this is a good place for me to stop. Unfortunately, I think I still have a few more questions for Mr. Fairholm.
And it's
I don't know if
4:30. Do they not
the
go
state
till
would be
5?
agreeable to, I think we have potentially an expert in the morning, and Mr. Fireholm might not be able to get back up here until tomorrow afternoon.
And maybe we can have some off-the-record discussion about scheduling briefly. Okay, we'll do that before everybody takes off, but we'll plan on recessing until 9 o'clock in the morning. I have been informed by the clerk of court that they're bringing a crane in tomorrow to move something. So whatever the parking situation was this morning, it's going to be even worse tomorrow, to the extent people want to know that. They may need a couple extra minutes to get here. See you tomorrow at 9. Have a nice
Well,
night.
whoever
Thank
was
you.
joining me, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to try and do these more often. So I'm trying to do it around actual client work. But y'all have a good night. Bye.